I'm joined, as usual, by Laure Jackson, a specialist sensory occupational therapist, to answer your questions about all those things. Hello, Anne. How are you?
Hello. Really good. Good to be with you today. Thank you.
Excellent. I know you've got lots of changes going on in your business life at the moment, and your business tree. I love that term, business tree, which I heard you use ages ago. It's fabulous.
It just sums up everything that I do, though, isn't it? It's a kind of like, it's a high, you have to feed, you have to pay for your overheads, you have to do everything else, you have to be able to generate finance. And yet, however, the heart of what you do is ultimately to love and to serve and to help. So, yeah.
Right, let's jump into a first question. Let's just jump straight in. So when chalk scrapes on a board, it gives me goosebumps and I really, really don't like it. Is this in any way related to sensory issues? And I guess the extra question not asked is, can I fix it?
Tell you that one, it's a really good example to use, because often when I do trainings or we talk to people, we have to find situations that people can connect to, and that boy is that a major one. Lots of us of a certain age anyway will be able to remember that. Now I've got whiteboards and all the rest of it. But yeah, totally. It is that experience of something about that frequency, the pitch, and also because we get a sense of what it feels like if you have like nails on a board, or you connect with more of your senses than you actually realize. You think you're just hearing something, but actually our brains get quite involved with it all. So yes, it is definitely a sensory thing. It is definitely a really good example of how dysregulating or unpleasant a very simple thing is that for some people isn't an issue at all. And yet for others, it really is. As far as treating it is concerned, we'd say, well, yeah, do get a whiteboard. Let's completely change the environment if at all possible, because there's not many circumstances in life where you are typically connected to chalk and a chalkboard. But if it was a regular occurrence, for sure, well then we would look at treatment, and we would look at trying to regulate the auditory processing, but also the way that all of the senses connect, and just calm those senses down so there's not so much of an initial reaction, a definite aversive reaction to that sensation. But it's much better if you're in control of the chalk as well. It's much easier than if somebody else is doing it,
because you're less surprised by it, because you know you're moving your hand, therefore it's about to make a noise. So you sort of, I guess, you're mentally prepared for that.
Yeah.
We talk about the differences of the generations and how they don't know how easy they've got it. That's one. I would definitely say you don't know how easy you've got it. That fingernails on a chalkboard or whatever. A blackboard, a proper old-fashioned blackboard in a schoolroom, that's a whole other world of noise,
isn't it, Justin? It's just like, I remember being like chucked, like, probably can't say this, but I will say anyway, like the teacher throwing chalk at me. If I was such a good girl at school, but boy, we like, look, she was a really good shot. If I ever turned around or said something else, I was like, oof, got the chalk from the front. Yeah, wouldn't be allowed today.
No,
it was very effective.
I remember a teacher used to throw board rubbers, not at people, but near them. So it would bang, and it was like, whoa, that's like heavy duty. That would not be allowed today. It worked, though. It got their attention. Wow.
I think we'd rather go, let's have some movement breaks. I think that the sensory OT in me now would be just like, let's get attention in a different way.
I just totally agree. Okay, another question for Laure Jackson. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and experience in the field of sensory health. I am not usually able to catch your interview on the Get You Home show, but I tend to hear it on the Energize show on a Wednesday night. I got to listen in from start to finish this week, and it was so helpful for my own life and well-being, for my family and people I work with. You have such a gentle, caring, calming and relaxing voice. I could listen to you all day. Thank you, and keep up the good work. You are making such a difference.
Oh, wow. How amazing is that? Oh, that's gorgeous. Thank you to whoever said that. Thank you.
Yeah. So, I think I have quite a few comments, and I think it's one of those where we kind of understand physical struggles. We've broken a leg. We need a doctor. Okay, we can process that. And I think we said this before. We can sort of more better. That's terrible English. Grasp the idea of mental health. But then sensory health, which is also really important, is becoming something that I think we can learn from. And people are now, I mean, hopefully that's what we're doing through this. We're making more people aware of another area of their life that can be improved, because there is hope, isn't there?
Oh, there is massive. And if I was thinking, I had a mum talk to me this week. She said, look, can you go in and help these people? She was in a swimming pool. And she said it was awful. You could tell she was still really shocked in her voice, the way that she was explaining it to me. And what had happened was that there were some children in the swimming pool, obviously with differences, with special needs, and with carers, and not with their own family. That should be fine, absolutely not an issue. But what was happening was that one of the carers was constantly saying no, no, no to this child that was in the swimming pool. And, and my friend as a mum was thinking, well, what is she saying no to? What is the problem with what the child is doing? Needless to say, by the end of the session, child had a meltdown, was kicking, was hitting, was screaming. And what they chose to do was actually pin the child to the floor in the swimming pool, just outside of the swimming pool, on the floor itself. And they were telling the child to stop. And when the child was quiet, that then they would take them out of the swimming pool. My friend was just utterly, like, as another mum who was there in the swimming pool with her children, she was utterly distraught about what had been happening to this child. A, the way the child had been spoken to, B, the expectations of that child in the middle of this obviously really overwhelming situation. And what I got from that was, if anything, if we can let folk know that if no is not a great word at the best of times anyway. I am very much about, yes, as the adult, we're in charge, but the child is to be in control, because they know what's what. They will sense things, they will perceive things in a way that other people won't do, and how we can honor that, and how we can read. We really need to learn to read other people, to help them, so that they don't get to the point where they've just lost it, and then they have to be pinned down on the side of the swimming pool with like folks on top of them and telling them to calm down, and then once they're calm, they'll take them out. And it's also, if we may just encourage people, let folk know that when folks have lost it, whether that be a child or whether that be an adult, you can't talk to them. It isn't a place to reason, because the whole reasoning brain has gone out the window. There are too many hormones flooding the space. So to be able to say, oh, like, well, just talk to me calmly, or just do this, or just do that, the brain is in flight and fright and absolute panic mode at that point. So, I mean, they at that point just dragged him out, literally dragged him out across the swimming pool floor, where you walk, and into the changing rooms. And it's like, well, let's not get to that point in the first place. But B, you can't talk when they're having a complete and utter meltdown. That's not the time to try and reason with them, because they were likely to get more angry with you and more angry at themselves, because they can't bring themselves back down together. So, yeah, if anything, it was just like, oh no, things are happening all over the place, and that there's so much we need to get out to help people, and just give them strategies, because there's no doubt that people were doing it with the best intentions, but that's utterly only going to wind somebody up even worse, and they're not going to be able to regroup, bring themselves together, and calm themselves down. We have to do, when they've lost it, they don't have the capacity to know how to calm themselves down. So
I had a friend who worked with adult with additional abilities, and he quite frequently would work with those who might have a sort of more violent outburst way of trying to express. And he talked about how that there were all these techniques they were taught to try and safely physically restrain someone so they couldn't hurt others, because that was just part of what he dealt with. That was his day job.
Yeah.
And he was quite frequently, the police would arrive, they'd arrest him, interview him. It's like that was just the job, because he would literally physically have to restrain someone.
Yeah.
But I think I remember him saying quite clearly, but you don't try and talk to them in that place. When it gets to that stage, and that's when he would then step in to try and help, that's not the time for a conversation, because at that moment, he's now trying to stop that person from hurting themselves, hurting other people around them, other members of staff. It's like, yes, there's a time for that, but that's not the time to try and engage in a rational conversation with someone who, by their very definition, is now not being rational. So you can't You can't make bad good, right? You can't rationalize the irrational because it's very nature of it. It's irrational.
Yeah. You then have to wait. Just wait for that moment to pass. Wait, make sure everybody is safe as at all possible. Them, others, absolutely. Help. The things will settle eventually, but you can't expect that to happen there and then. So it's just that when it settles, that's when you can then go in and talk about the issue, try and work out how things could have prevented getting to that place in the first place, and then what other strategies you might be able to use should it happen again. But not trying to work it all out at that moment.
Okay, yeah. which takes me to a fairly obvious question, I guess. So we've all seen in the supermarket, you've got classically a mum with a child who is out of control, screaming tantrums, all of that on the floor. And I, as a dad, I have sort of two sort of perspectives on this. One, what happened? Yeah. How did we get to that stage? Two, kind of, was that necessary? And I'm not surprised that child is having an issue because I've just heard the parent who's basically lying to the child. So you've got these two, I suppose, conflicting things, a child who wants or doesn't want, and a mum classically who does want or doesn't want. And the mum isn't being honest. And so, well, if you do this, we're going to leave. And I'm thinking, I know you're not going to leave. That child knows you're not going to leave. So now your words have no meaning whatsoever. And the child is having a meltdown. And all of a sudden that parent is expecting the child to suddenly flick a switch and behave in a way which is contradictory to that parent anyway. So with that, what strategies can parents use, grandparents, carers, for a child that is not, I suppose, not behaving in a way that is appropriate, perhaps? Just using that one as a first example. How can we work with a 2-year-old, with a 4-year-old? And again, 2-year-olds, they don't have the vocabulary. You can't have a rational conversation with a 2-year-old because they don't have the words in their head. So it's no wonder they're going to get a bit frustrated because they don't know what you're saying. They can't even say they don't understand because they haven't got the words. So how can we work with people in those kind of situations to de-escalate and also to try and seek to prevent?
I will always go to seek to prevent at all where possible first. I mean, absolutely 100%. And there are things like on the way, like waiting in the checkout. It's massively hard. We have many children who waiting is a big issue because they don't understand time. Understanding time is huge. We have a general sense. Time is often connected to the vestibular system, funnily enough. So the sense of us knowing where we are in space also happens in time and in space. So when kind of like God created the world outside of time, outside of space, outside of all the rest of that, that's kind of almost what our vestibular system embodies almost. That when we are, so often a lot of our work for understanding timing and sequencing, we work on the vestibular system quite a lot. So anyway, so that was a complete digression. Timing, waiting, because waiting is massive. And people don't know how long am I expected to wait for. I definitely agree with don't say things you can't fulfill. That it really is awful. Not for your own relationship, for the current situation. That does absolutely nothing, no good for anybody whatsoever. Often, if they are waiting, I will do a lot of things where you count. So it's like and using the proprioceptive and vestibular systems. That if you're there in a queue, you can't speed it up anymore. Nothing else can happen. I presume you're not promising sweets. And a lot of places have taken the sweets away. If it's that kind of thing, we're dealing with a tantrum, which isn't a meltdown. So that's a different behavioral approach. That's a different thing. If we're tantruming, because tantrums will stop when you give them what they want. Meltdowns won't. A meltdown is just they've completely lost it neurophysiologically. So there's a lovely difference to begin with. But before if you're having to wait, if they're starting to get unsettled, they're wanting, you can tell something is building in them, then do kind of like little stands up and down, get them to rock a little bit up and down on their toes. It gives them deep touch pressure and it gives them something, a beginning and an end. So kind of like 1 to 10, if they've got that understanding of what 1 to 10 is. Obviously some will, some won't. You might just want to sing a song internally, or if you've got your phone, make sure they listen to something that has a beginning and an end and they know a bit more about time. And then whenever that song is finished, then you put on the next song. So again, that has a beginning and an end. And then hopefully they can see the cue going down or, things like that happening. And often if you've spent about half an hour in the supermarket, the overwhelm is huge. There are massive sounds all over the place. There's lots of smells all over the place. There are, sights, sounds, smells. People might be touching them unexpectedly. So I would always cut down. If you think that they're starting to get a bit more heightened, a bit more dysregulated by half an hour, cut your shopping down to 20 minutes, and you do 2 lots of 20-minute shops rather than one big one. Or you do the online shopping, or you go to the small shops instead, where they can often cope with it with a small shop before. So there's a lot of that to take on board. So timings, when you might go to the shops, and also you might want to go to the shops before, at the beginning of the day rather than at the end of the day, because the amount of sensory events that have happened during the day just build up and get to that place of overwhelm quite quickly. Whereas at the beginning of the day, they might be able to tolerate a lot more than they could at the end of the day. But I would use, if they are in a queue and you really need to stay in the queue, then I would use squeezing, I would use rocking, I would use up and down, use the vestibular system, squeeze, use timings, make a clear beginning and an end, and just try and get through it as best possible, and then learn for the next time that actually maybe that half an hour was too long, or it really isn't worth pushing it. If you see it starting to go, unless you've got some really good sensory strategies up your sleeve and that you can tap into, then I would make a quick departure as soon as possible.
Okay. I'm sure recently, in the last month or so, I saw a shop that said between the hours of, I don't remember, 2 and 4, whatever, it's suitable for people who are older folk and those with sensory needs. So I'm sure what I remember was they were turning off the tannoy, for example. Mm-hmm. I don't know about muting the tills. I mean, I actually complain quite frequently at a local supermarket, can you please turn the beep down when I scan? Because It's actually giving me a headache. It's that loud. And I've got fairly good ears, but it's actually affecting me personally because it's so loud. Yeah. That beep is sort of going into my body. I'm thinking, well, I've only got like 10 items or whatever. This is going to end. But of course, that thing you said about time, I remember in the Scouts, we did a thing about you can stand up at 1 minute. And it was just an experiment. I'm thinking it was to get us to be quiet, actually, because we had to count. But what I discovered was the older you get, the better you are able at guessing time than when you are younger. So with increased age, you actually are better, more naturally at thinking, well, that's 5 minutes. Whereas at 10, with 14 Scouts, whatever, 10 minutes, I don't know, you could be sort of 3 minutes and 20 minutes, but as an adult, you're much closer hitting that mark. So of course, with that child in that checkout, like you said, there's no end in sight, and there's boredom, natural boredom. Supermarkets drive me mad because they're hot and smelly. The bakery is like, oh, I really want bread, and it's there obviously to sell. But of course, if you've got issues with sensory needs, it's gonna even more overwhelm you. I don't have most of those sensory sensitivities, I don't think, but even I'm affected. So I'm thinking, well, if you do, it's just infinitely more impossible. And like you said, is it managing? Is that sort of what you're saying?
Well, it's a combination. We want to be treating the system outside of the supermarket for sure. But yeah, managing it as best you can and finding all those tiny little strategies about the size of the shop, how long you want the shop, when do you want the shop to be, what can the individual do while they are shopping, because sometimes actually having then a tick list, or if they're the ones doing the pushing and the pulling, you might want to have 2 baskets rather than an actual trolley. They might want to be in the trolley, and they can hang over it. Inversion, when you're hanging upside down, is a really calming strategy for lots of people. Obviously, they've got to be little enough. If you're too big, then yeah, you're going to tip the whole thing and it'll be a complete disaster. But yep. There's lots of things where we match somebody's sensory thumbprint with an activity that has to be done, because unless you do the online shopping, then there is a practical, you've got to know how to shop and how to shop well according to your needs. And the supermarkets are really, as you say, they're really getting clued in to the things that they can do if you are overreactive. They don't need to help those that are underreactive, because it's such a sensory exciting place that really helps a lot. Lots of registration, and then make sure that they put things in supermarket aisles for those. When you're going in, you see those immediately, and you've got the different colours that will attract you for certain things. There's a mass amount of psychology in shopping, and those who need that extra. And who appreciate the prompts that the supermarkets give you to buy, well, they'll be fine. But it is those that are more overreactive and that are sensitive that those occasions are brilliant. So I haven't published it yet, but it's in my website that I actually created about 2 years ago, called Shopping. But that is for all shops, not just not just supermarkets. So yeah, maybe it's time for me to blow the dust off that and get that out. It was just just something to put that out there for any shops that wanted to be aware of the little things that they could do to help our overreactive, our sensory sensitive ones.
And I guess the other part of that is you can say, well, there's a problem in a supermarket. My child can't cope. I can't cope with my child. So I'll just do online shopping. That's that problem solved. But of course, you're not teaching the child how to engage and how to learn to manage their own unique set of struggles. So actually, yes, there might be a time for saying, let's not do that for 6 weeks. Half a year, we've got other stuff going on, but actually indefinitely to not do something just because someone struggles, you don't want to torture someone. But at the same time, I think you said before about you sort of introduce, we talking about noise the one time, and you can have a sound which triggers a bad memory. So you have a little sound or a short amount of sound. So you can desensitize. And in a similar vein, I guess that's sort of what you're saying is about supermarkets. Maybe there's a time to say, let's not go for 6 weeks, but maybe then let's work at introducing a small shop, quiet shop, or even, shops could do so much, couldn't they? Just striking me.
But it's that, we've got to train people for life. That's the real OT in me. It's occupation. We've got to train people. We've got to help people to work out how to do the things that they want to do. And it really is not about avoiding life. It's about avoiding experiences that are going to be overwhelming and not pleasurable and painful. We have to avoid those things, but we have to also engage in life and do the things that bring meaning to life and are a part of functioning in life. But we have to work out how to do that in a way that people can do it.
Which might mean some avoidance, but it might mean some small experiences that you can build up. I remember there was a group somewhere in Shropshire, and they were working with, particularly their particular charity was new mums with babies, and perhaps sort of 15, 16-year-old mums. And one of the things they found is they didn't know how to cook. And it wasn't just they didn't know what saucepan to use for how to mix meals together to make them nice. They didn't know how to go shopping. They didn't know what do I buy in a supermarket that I can combine then on a cooker to make a meal. So they actually took them not just, well, here's a supermarket. They had to sort of teach them how to use a supermarket well, because they're going to try and get you money. That's fine. They're a business. That's what they're going to do. But this charity then was doing like the whole package of, well, this is what you need to buy. This is how you buy it. Check use by dates. Don't buy these things. Buy these things. This is a cheaper version of that. And it's this information that in a sense was kind of lacking, but then teaching them not just to cook, but how to buy well in order to cook, in order to feed their families.
Yeah. And that's brilliant. That's a beautifully well thought through program, because it has really understood that you can't just do the end bit, or you can't just do the middle bit. We have to check right from the very beginning all the stages that are involved in feeding and providing are met, and they know they have the skills to deal with each and every single aspect of that. Really
and
good.
Going with a child in tow, which is, some of them have gotten quite stressed. How can you help the children work through this process? And obviously, very young teenage mums, perhaps families have turned their backs, so they're sort of on their own. And what do we do? And they're overloaded, in a sense, by every sort of thing, including the senses. Financial overwhelming and social overwhelming, because support networks have gone. And so there's a lot we can do. You were talking about it's gone from my head completely. We talked about this just before we started recording, the thing that you did on the website to help people.
The fact that I am merging my websites.
Thank you. Sorry, it completely went.
Yeah, what's amazing is that for the last 7 years, I've been building this business online, trying to reach out to people, let people know that we exist, and that we're here to help. And then you get these transformational, you know, experiences and the changes in the family and beautiful testimonies. But I've had little fingers in lots of pies all over the place. And then this year, it was a real Sabbath year of just what does it mean? Let me just settle. And we've been building like amazingly over the last while and going here, there, and everywhere. And it was like, no, let's just settle. I need to settle. I need to prune back. I need to just rest and see, okay, where are we going next? What's the wise thing to do? And through the year, this wasn't my intention, but it's lovely the way that you're led through things, that actually it would be so much better if we kept one part, which is what I do locally with the government and with schools. I keep that separate, but the rest of everything that I do comes under the Laure Jackson website, and we merge everything together, and we get a very clear distinction that we've got school sensory support, we've got regular sensory support for those who aren't Christians, who aren't interested in the whole faith-based side of things, and they just want help for their sensory needs. And then we've got Christian sensory support. And all of those are within the Laure Jackson website, but they are still within one website, because before they were in other websites, different websites. So now it is a new start. So as of tomorrow, we're into November, between November and December the 18th, we're offering for £49 a month, anybody who wants to come in to get their individual assessed. I can offer the treatment with them, it's all online, and then management. So we kind of take between 6 months to a year, normally a year, because life happens and it takes that amount of time to really embed this information, and for folks to really be empowered and equipped, which is a big part of who I am, big part of my calling, big part of what I love to do, is supporting other people to be able to do that stuff. So yes, so it's annelaurejackson.com/new start if anybody wants to come and have a look and join us. We're starting afresh, and we'd love it to be a new start for other families, for children, for adults, for older people, for individuals themselves who are struggling with sensory needs. And it's like, come and join us, come and find out more.
Did I remember rightly that there's a special offer thing going on because of the new start? Was it, so I hear 50 people? Is that in my head? Yeah.
For the first 50 people. For the first 50 people, it's your $49 a month. For them to be able to come in, and that folks stay for as long as they like to. That there is no, I don't ever chuck anybody out. It's like when folks feel as though they've got enough, when they know enough, because there's on-demand courses, there's loads of videos on the inside of how to, and then it's about coming together on the coaching. So it's just like when to. So they learn the why, the what, the how, and the who is them doing it with their family or their individual in their circumstances. So wherever folks are in the world, because it is online based, we can then go out and just serve people wherever they happen to be. And I'm always here once a week for the coaching, for folk to come in and chat things through. So yeah, for the first 50 people, annelaurejackson.com/new start. It's a new start for us and a new start for them, God willing.
Oh, brilliant. I love that. So annelaurejackson.com is your website. I've noticed a couple of my presenters saying Anne Laura. No, Anne Laure. It's quite funny.
I know. There was a time, because like for years, I didn't want being completely open here. I didn't want Laure Jackson to be part of anything that I did. It was always about occupational therapy Jersey. It was about sensory processing. It was Christian sensory support. It was shots. It wasn't about my name. And then you suddenly realize that, oh no, I need to get over that, because people do see me, recognize me. The only thing being my name, but once people have got it, Anne with an E, Laure with an E, and then Jackson. But yeah, I know
we've fixed that now. I had a quick coaching session on phonetics. No, just Laure. Thank you as ever. I love these sessions, and as you can hear by the comment we had coming in, people do. It's really helpful, and I think because it's one of those things that's been overlooked. Mental health was overlooked for a long time. Yeah. You think about shell shock. Oh yeah, just get over it. No, now we understand the trauma of explosions. And in the same way, I think, and I hope, part of what we're doing here is highlighting the fact that there are sensory needs as well. And actually, with Richard Scott, the resident doctor, we're talking about sleep hygiene, which was fascinating, which is about having a good sleep health. And there are all these things. And I don't think it's overwhelming so much as it's helpful to understand that some of us are going to have unique situations because we're all unique, aren't we? Every single one of us. We're made on purpose, with purpose by God. And I absolutely believe that, which means we're all wonderfully unique and different. And I love that.
Yeah, absolutely. Amen.
Thank you, Anne, for another session. It's brilliant. I love these. And we'll begin back again next week for more of the same. Do feel free to send your questions to me to ask to Anne. hello@pure247radio.org, hello@pure247radio.org. And you can just sign it anonymous or don't put your name in. That's absolutely fine. We won't say who you are. Not a problem. Thank you, Anne.
Oh, great to see you.
Have a great rest of your day.